in talking about contracts,
Yeah.
you know, you get a referral from your friend. Hey, call Jim. He's a great contractor. Great, and they have that trust transfer,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you say, okay, great, and you just trust everything about that contractor.
Right.
Let's just take a couple minutes and unpack the contract.
Sure.
The actual contract, one of the things in your contract, it should reference the plans. And I'm gonna, for the sake of argument, I'm gonna assume that we have a set of architectural plans here.
Right.
Well, one thing I didn't realize is how some contractors view architectural prints. So,
mere suggestion.
yeah, like admittedly, I suffer from borderline OCD. You know, Legos as a kid, and I liked putting the Legos together the way the instructions had. I wasn't very creative. I liked building the thing according to the plan.
Uh-huh.
And when I got into construction, the architectural prints were built to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a guideline. Yes, you could take all the pieces. I could have that Lego set to build a bulldozer, and I could make a helicopter out of it on my own with, you know, cobbling pieces together. But that's not what the plan was for.
Right.
Successful projects, the contract references the plans, and it's to be built to those plans.
Yes.
And that's a conversation that needs to happen between the homeowner and the builder and the architect.
Right.
How do you view these plans? Is this the Bible? Or is it, as you just said, like a guideline?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an owner and you've gone through the expense of hiring an architect to carefully design and put together a set of plans for you to show you what your home is going to look like, and with all the detail, it's not just a matter of, you know, well, maybe we'll move this wall and here, you know, here's the finish on this. I mean, architectural plans serve a much greater purpose, and they'll get submitted for purposes of permitting. They have to have a lot of detail in them. And you as the owner, your expectation is that the builder has looked at these plans, has considered them and all the detail in figuring out what they're in determining what's going to be built, whether it's feasible, and what it's going to cost you. And so, you know, certainly as the owner, if you have a contractor who's looked at these plans and done all that and comes back to you and says, hey, this is going to be $1 million, you know, you want to have the security of knowing that that's going to be the price to build exactly what was drawn and as drawn. And so that's way your expectations are set. And if the contractor comes back later and says, well, we need more money because we didn't factor in, you know, A, B, and C, well, they were there in the plans, and they were there when you looked at the plans and gave me the original quote. And, you know, as logical as that might sound, you know, the contractor in those situations isn't going to be like, oh, you're right, sorry, I'll just eat it and continue to build it. But to have that referenced in the contract specifically, these are the plans you're going to build to, the price you gave me is based on these plans, and, you know, the only thing, and look, there are some legitimate things that arise in the course of a project that will lead to higher prices, a higher price than what you were quoted. Certainly there are certain unknowns when you know, maybe you're going to open up a couple of walls and you find mold and you weren't anticipating that. And that's the kind of thing that's not written into a plan. I mean, that's the kind of thing that on the job it needs to be dealt with, and it wasn't factored into the original price. And it's fair for the contractor to ask for more money if they have to remediate mold that wasn't anticipated or expected, assuming there was no reason for the contractor to know it was there in the first place. Subsurface conditions are another thing that happens a lot with, you know, when it comes to building a house.
I mean, I like to say, you know, I don't have x-ray vision. Good contractors don't have x-ray vision, but they can see around corners.
Okay.
You're in an old house, and you kind of can guess if there's knob and tube wiring. You should be going, hey, we might find knob and tube wiring.
Right.
So there is a fine line there. Look, there's 1,000 ways to create a change order, but the way those are created and why, you know, upon discovery of something, it should be brought to the homeowner's attention. You know, you should be getting a bill at the end after the fact. But another thing about the contract and the school of thought, and you'll like this since you're the attorney and I'm the contractor, I get to sell attorney-client services. So I have a friend of mine, okay? Very, very close friend. I've known him for decades. He's entering in a transaction and he asked me for my opinion, and I go, have it reviewed by an attorney. And he came back and he goes, well, you know, the person that's giving me the contract says it's boilerplate.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
I got very upset. I mean, I actually, got the eyebrow up and everything, and said, "What did you give me? Why did you ask me for advice if you're not going to take it?"
Right.
I was taught before I signed anything,
Mm-hmm.
anything, non-disclosure agreement, a
Right.
simple letter of intent to purchase, I have it reviewed by an attorney.
Right.
It's money well spent.
Absolutely.
Because, and that doesn't cost like that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that is not like thousands of dollars to review,
No.
like to get an eyeball on a contract.
Right.
But I just realized that that's not the school of thought, because I think most people don't realize,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe there's some preconceived notion about attorneys,
Yeah.
but in construction, especially now with inflation, you've got contracts that were sitting out there that builders have used, some of them for decades.
Right.
They're no longer relevant to the
Right.
sign of the times. There's not an escalation clause in it. There's not a warranty claim in it. There's not anything that references defects. If it's not par for the course, if you're doing any type of renovation product to have
Mhm.
your contract reviewed by an attorney, those days are over. You need to have an attorney put an eyeball on it.
Yeah.
Spend the money on it, and that's coming from a contractor.
Right.
It's from a contractor. This is not a self-serving.
Right.
It's for the good of everybody. It protects both parties.
Yes.
No contractor is going to sign it if it's bad for him.
Right. And I was having this conversation yesterday. I was on a podcast that's geared towards contractors, and we talked about the importance of a contract. And ideally, you sign the contract, you stick it in the drawer, and no one ever has to look at it again. But that's not the reality, really. That's not really how these projects work. We always hope it does, but it doesn't. And so, having from a contractor's perspective, well, I want you to kind of look at it like if you were the homeowner and the contractor came in and you gave the homeowner a contract that is, the margins are misaligned, there's typos in it, there's inconsistent provisions.
The license
in it.
number is not on it.
Yeah, I mean, all of these, and the thing is, an owner doesn't necessarily know that there should be a license number on it, but if you hand me a document that looks like it was drafted by a teenager, I'm gonna think that's how you do everything, right? I mean, you want to put a professional foot forward, you want to have that image as a contractor who has gone to a lawyer to draft this document, and it's presented in that way that it's very professional looking and very clear and concise and orderly, and that'll give you instant credibility, and just as important, it'll not take away from your credibility when you're in there with the homeowner. And that's an important thing, and I have this happen with homeowners all the time, where they'll give me a contract because they want me to take a look at it in advance, and I can tell immediately whether or not this contractor is what they're all about just by looking at this document that they've given to the client, how thorough it is, how professionally prepared it is. It's also the same thing. It's funny on the back end of projects. Sometimes sometimes contractors have to put liens on projects, right? I mean, it just happens. I mean, there's a particular form that's used, and you can tell immediately whether the form was drafted by a lawyer or whether the form was just filled out by, anytime you're filling out a lien by hand and you put it in the public records as a contractor, and I represent the owner and I see that lien, I know that you don't like hiring lawyers. I know that immediately.
Right.
So I know that, the likelihood of you actually trying to take the steps to hire a lawyer to enforce this lien are very minimal. And I'm gonna use that when I advise my clients on how to deal with that lien and what we're gonna do with it. So really, again, it comes back to the how you do anything is how you do everything.
I was waiting for you to say
Right?
it. I was waiting
love
for you to
saying
say
that.
it.
But yeah, I mean, just having the professional image, and then of course the importance of what's actually written in it has to be, it can't be anything. I used to say it can't be something, that most of the time, some of these contractors, they Frankenstein something together that their old boss used to use and what they found on Google. Now I guess I should say what they had ChatGPT write up for them, right? So, but,
Right.
and I think that's a little dangerous. A lot of people use ChatGPT as in substitution for a lawyer because it's better than anything they had before, and they think, okay, that's got to be better than.
Yeah, times have changed.
Yeah.
Big times have changed. In renovation projects, they're as a percentage of the cost of the project.
Right.
Have your contract reviewed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the cost of doing business. Like, it's just money so well spent. An owner's rep will pay for itself.
Yep.
Hard for some people to realize that. It's like you might look at it as an extra layer of expense, but self-serving comment. I think you really can't afford not to have an owner's rep for a large project.
Right.
It's money well spent.
What do you think?